Theo Marlowe sat hunched over his desk, a half-empty cup of coffee growing cold beside him. The walls of his cramped study, littered with papers and books, had become his sanctuary. The reclusive mathematician, Theo, had dedicated his life to solving the impossible. The equation on his chalkboard was no exception. It had haunted him for weeks, a complex formula with variables and constants that seemed to defy the very laws of mathematics. No one had been able to crack it, not even the greatest mind in the field, but for some reason, Theo couldn't let it go. He could feel it calling to him, urging him to find the solution. As the days passed, his obsession deepened. He scribbled frantically, tweaking numbers, rearranging symbols, and making barely perceivable adjustments. It felt like something was just out of reach. And then, one evening, after hours of seemingly fruitless labor, something clicked. The numbers on the chalkboard aligned perfectly. The equation, once a maze of confusion, now appeared simple, almost too simple. Theo stared at the solution, his breath catching in his chest. The instant he wrote the final symbol, a strange sensation washed over him. A subtle shift in the air, a pressure at the back of his mind. He felt the consciousness stretch like he was being pulled away from his body. His vision blurred, and before he knew it, the room around him faded to darkness. Theo's heart raced as he found himself no longer sitting at the desk, but floating in a vast, endless void. The sensation was disorienting, and panic began to set in. Was he dreaming? Had he lost his mind? He tried to move, but his body felt distant, as though it were no longer connected to him. He could still think, still feel, but he could no longer be tethered to the physical world. Suddenly, a figure appeared before him, a woman, standing tall in the void, her face calm and unreadable. Her voice, when it came, was soft yet carried an undeniable authority. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "You've broken through." Theo tried to speak, but his voice faltered. What? What is this place? What's happening to me? The woman's gaze shifted slightly, as if weighing whether to answer. "You solved the equation, haven't you? The one that no one else could. Now you've entered the astral plane. It's not a place for the unprepared, Theo Marlowe." Theo's mind raced. The equation had done this to him. He had no idea what the astral plane even was, let alone how he had ended up here. But before he could ask any more questions, the woman spoke. "My name is Alaire Steele, and you're not the only one who's come here. You're not alone." Alaire's words echoed in the empty expanse around Theo. He blinked, trying to focus on her, but the space between them seemed to stretch impossibly for her. The astral plane, as she had called it, was unlike anything Theo had ever imagined. There was no clear boundaries, no landmarks, just an endless sea of swirling colors and shifting shapes. It felt as though time and space had no meaning here. "I don't understand," Theo said, his voice trembling. "How is this possible? How did I get here?" Alaire's expression softened, but there was an underlying intensity in her gaze. "You solved the equation. That's why I brought you here." But the equation wasn't just a mathematical problem. It was a doorway, a connection between worlds, and now that you've opened it, you're part of something much bigger than he realized. Theo felt a chill creep over him. The notion that something as abstract as an equation could lead him to this place, this strange, alien plane, was unsettling. He had always prided himself on his rational mind and understanding the rules of logic and reason, but this defied every principle he had ever known. "So what now?" Theo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What am I supposed to do here?" Alaire's eyes darkened, and she took a step closer, her presence suddenly more commanding. "You're not the only one who has solved the equation. There are others like you, other solvers, who have been drawn to this plane by the same force. But you're also being hunted." Theo's heart skipped a beat. "Hunted?" Alaire nodded grimly. The equation opened the door, but it also attracted something far more dangerous. There are beings here, shadowy entities, that seek to capture astral travelers. They feed on the energy of our consciousness, and will stop at nothing to keep us from escaping. Theo's mind raced, trying to comprehend what Alaire was telling him. He had never believed in the supernatural, and yet, there he was, caught in the middle of something that defied all reason. His logical mind couldn't reconcile the situation, but his instincts told him to listen to Alaire. She seemed to know more about this place than he did. "Why me?" Theo asked, a pang of fear rising in his chest. "Why was I chosen?" "You solved the equation," Alaire said again. "That makes you a key to the puzzle. You're more than just a solver, you're a target." Theo took a deep breath. He had no choice but to trust her. "For now, what do I need to do?" Alaire's gaze was steady. "First, we need to find the others. Together, we might stand a chance against the shadows, but time is running out." Theo nodded, his mind still reeling. He wasn't sure what kind of danger awaited him in this strange realm, but One thing was clear. He had to uncover the equation's true purpose before it was too late. Theo followed Alara through the vast, swirling expanse of the astral plane. The colors around them shifted constantly, creating an ever-changing landscape. They passed through the strange formations, floating geometric shapes, endless loops and fractals that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality. It was as if the laws of physics had no hold here. As they moved, Theo couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every time he turned his head, he thought he saw fleeting shadows at the edge of his vision, moving too quickly to be real. He kept his pace steady, trying not to panic. Alara, however, seemed unfazed, as though she had grown accustomed to the eerie presence of the astral plane. "This place," Theo began, his voice uncertain. "It feels wrong, like it's not supposed to exist." Alara glanced at him, her eyes narrowing. "It's not supposed to exist. Not in the way you think, but the equation is what holds this place together. It creates the fabric of this world, and that's why the shadowy beings are so intent on capturing us." Theo's mind spun as he tried to make sense of everything. What are these shadowy beings? What do they want from us? "They want to stop us," Alara replied. "Stop us from unraveling the true purpose of the equation. We're the only ones who can reach the core of this place, and we're desperate to prevent that from happening." Theo's chest tightened. "So what happens if they catch us?" "They feed on our essence," Alara said coldly. "And once they do, we're lost. The astral plane becomes our prison forever." Theo shuddered at the thought. He had to get out of this place. He had to find the answer. Alara led them to a small group of figures gathered in the distance. They were standing together, their forms flickering like ghosts. As they approached, Theo realized they were the other solvers, people who had cracked the same equation and had been drawn into the astral plane, just like him. One of them, a tall man with dark hollow eyes, stepped forward. "You made it," he said, his voice hoarse. "We've been waiting for you." Theo exchanged a look with Alara. "What's going on here? What's the equation really about?" The man hesitated before speaking. "It's a key to something far greater than any of us can understand. But the shadows, they'll do anything to keep us from finding it." The group of solvers huddled together in a silent, tense meeting. The astral plane seemed to pulse around them, the swirling colors growing darker, more impressive. Theo's heart pounded as he listened to their whispered conversations, but the fear in the air was palpable. "Why are they hunting us?" Theo asked, his voice quiet but urgent. "What's at the heart of the equation?" Alara glanced around the group before answering. "The equation is a map. It leads to something called the nexus, but no one knows exactly what the nexus is. Some believe it's the source of all knowledge, others think it's a doorway to other realms. Either way, the shadows want to prevent us from reaching it." One of the solvers, a woman with silver hair and piercing green eyes, stepped forward. "The nexus is the key to everything, the ultimate solution to the equation, and once we unlock it, we'll be able to leave this place. But we can't do it without the others. We need to move fast before the shadows can catch up to us." Theo nodded grimly. "What do we need to do?" Alara's expression hardened. "We need to solve the equation's true purpose. Only then can we reach the nexus and escape. But it's gonna take all of us working together." As the group discussed their next steps, Theo couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The shadows were closing in, and the weight of the equation's mystery pressed down on him. He didn't know what the nexus was, or why it mattered so much, but one thing was clear. His life and the lives of the others depended on solving this, once and for all. Theo sat alone in a quiet corner of the astral plane, staring at the swirling shapes around him. His mind was racing, trying to piece together the final pieces of the equation's puzzle. He had spent so much time focusing on the formula itself, on the logic and numbers, that he hadn't considered the deeper meaning. But now, with the shadows closing in and his life hanging in the balance, everything seemed to fall in place. The equation wasn't just a doorway, it was a manifestation of something greater, an energy that connected all realms, and the nexus was its heart. The solvers weren't just here to escape, they were here to awaken something that had been dormant for centuries. Theo stood up, a surge of understanding flooding his mind. The answer had always been there, hidden in plain sight. He had to act fast. Racing back to the group, Theo explained his realization. "The nexus isn't just a place," he said urgently. "It's a source of power, and we're all connected to it. The shadows, they're trying to stop us from awakening it." With Alara's guidance, the solvers worked together to unlock the final piece of the equation. The shadows were closing in, but it was too late. The nexus flickered to life, its energy radiating outwards. Theo felt a sense of peace wash over him as the equation's true purpose was revealed. The shadows, their mission, failed. dissipating into nothingness. And Theo, for the first time, felt truly free, free that is, to explore the realms with those that think just like him.